day, it's Charlene here from the Assumption Effect. And today I want to do a teaching on Milton Erickson's technique for one of the biggest beliefs among all people. I am not good enough. If you always break down the steps with clients and even within yourself watching this video, I am not good enough belief is 90% of the time present within your beliefs. I'm doing a full teaching and a demonstration on I am not good enough belief. This will break down how it works and will give you a complete hypnosis breakdown on how I incorporate this into a metaphor that the unconscious understands. I was really thinking that this is information that needs to get out there so that people can understand actually what is going on with them. I am not good enough boils down to perfectionism. People say, I'm a perfectionist. And I was one of them. We think it's a good thing. It's not, because you don't feel good enough. And to hide behind that I'm a perfectionist means that I'm doing everything perfect. Why am I doing everything perfect? Because I don't feel good enough. So if I'm perfect, then I'm hiding that belief and I'm portraying somebody that I want to be enough. And I'm thinking by being perfect in everything I do, that it will give me that feeling of good enough. But in fact, it just makes you feel worse, because the more perfect you want to be, it's a vicious cycle. Procrastination is another one. Procrastination is similar to perfectionism. Overworking, people pleasing, imposter syndrome, even anxiety and depression. And here's the problem. You cannot argue a client out of it. You can't say, but you are good enough, and expect that to land, because around the age of 6, 7, 8, your unconscious mind already ran that argument and lost. So today I'm going to walk you through how Milton Erickson would have approached this belief. It's not one technique, but this is a toolkit. So we're going to do utilization, pacing, and leading, prism, presuppositions, embedded commands, confusion, and therapeutic metaphor. And we're going to combine it. And at the end, I'll give you a complete word-for-word demonstration. You can adapt for yourself. So let's get to this. Okay. First, let's talk about why the obvious approach doesn't work. The obvious approach is direct suggestion. You are good enough. You are worthy. You are capable. And for a lot of clients, that bounces right off. Why? Because the whole model rests on one idea. The unconscious mind will resist any suggestion that violates the client's own model of reality. If a client has 30 years of evidence, real memories of criticism, comparison, failure, a flat contradiction triggers what Erickson called the critical faculty kicking back. The trance breaks, or worse, the suggestion just sits unused. So Eric's answer to this was never to argue with a belief. It was going around it. So we're going to go, instead of going straight, we're going to go around it. It's a sneaky way of doing it, but it's very effective. So we're going to bypass the critical faculty without triggering it. That is the main thing, not to trigger it. The first one is utilization. It was Erickson's signature move. You take whatever the client brings, including the resistance, and you use it as the induction itself. Instead of fighting it, this normally shows up as overthinking, hyper analyzing, checking, self-monitoring. Instead of asking clients to let go, which for an overthinker is basically an impossible instruction, you utilize the very thinking they're doing. So you might say, and you can keep thinking the way you always think, checking one thought against another, comparing, sorting, and somewhere in all that sorting, one small part of you can already start to rest. Notice you didn't ask them to stop thinking. You used their habitual pattern as the vehicle into trance. That's utilization. By me saying that sentence, already feel it's a sneaky way. Then we're going to go into pacing and leading. Pacing and leading is simple. It's the backbone of rapport at the unconscious level. State 3 or 4 things that are observably, undeniably true. Their breathing, the sound in the room, the weight of their body in the chair. And then you lead with one suggestion. You're sitting in the chair. You can hear my voice. You're breathing in and out. And you can notice how easy it is to let your eyes close. The client's unconscious says yes, 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 3 times. And by the 4th statement, it's primed to say yes again. This matters with not good enough clients because they are hypervigilant. Pacing proves to their unconscious before you've asked for anything that you're accurate, that you can be trusted. Then third, truisms and presuppositions. This is where the precision work happens. A truism is a statement the conscious mind cannot argue with. A tree doesn't ask the wind's permission before it grows towards the light. It's true. The power move is stacking a presupposition right after that. A presupposition is a statement that assumes something is already true. So the client's unconscious has to accept the assumption just to process the sentence. And you may already be noticing which of your own efforts, in fact, enough all along. It doesn't ask, were you ever enough? A question the conscious mind could argue with. It presupposes that there were such moments and invite the client to notice them. The critical faculty has nothing to push against because it was never asked a yes or no question in the first place. That is bringing us to the embedded commands. This is the technique that most people have heard of and least understand. An embedded command is a directive hidden inside a long sentence, marked out usually by a slight shift in your tone, volume, or pace, sometimes paired with small gesture or touch. So the unconscious flags it as significant, even though the conscious mind just hears a normal sentence. And I don't know exactly when you feel yourself relax and trust your own judgment, but your unconscious does. So we're going to say this sentence at normal pace, then slightly slow down and drop the tone on the relax and trust your own judgment. That shift is the marking. So it is a skill. So I'm going to repeat it again. And I don't know exactly when you feel yourself relax and trust your own judgment, but your unconscious does. You can actually feel how that relaxes the body. So we're going to use now, Erickson also used the confusion very deliberately with clients who had a strong, rigid critical faculty, which describes a huge number of not good enough clients' beliefs like perfectionism and overanalyzes is a strong critical faculty. The confusion technique overloads the conscious processing just enough that it steps aside, not through nonsense, but through legitimate complexity. So double meanings and shifting time references. So we deliver it smoothly and without any strain in the voice. And you can wonder now whether you realize later what you're already starting to understand, or whether you already realize that you'll be wondering about in a moment. So the conscious mind essentially gives up trying to track it. It confuses completely, and then the brain says, I'm not even going to track this sentence. And then that's when it opens the gap. I'm going to say this again, and you can wonder now whether you'll realize later what you're already starting to understand, or whether you already realize that you'll be wondering about in a moment. That is your opening for a clean, clear suggestion right after that. And finally, it's a therapeutic metaphor. The big one for identity level beliefs. This is a story structurally parallel to the client's situation, but on the surface about something else entirely. A craft person, an animal, a landscape, a stranger, because the story isn't about them. The critical faculty doesn't engage, but the unconscious recognize the structural parallel and does the work in any way. I'm going to show you a full one in the demonstration that I'm going to do now for you. This is where all of these that I've just discussed, I'm going to throw them all into this story and do this hypnosis. So if you have this belief of I'm not good enough, I would suggest that you can close your eyes and sit back and feel the shift, or you can utilize it tomorrow on your own. So I want you to take a deep breath in, deep breath out, relax. And when you're ready, you can sit however is comfortable for you right. And there is nothing you need to do. You can keep your eyes open or let them close, whichever your own body decides. You're hearing my voice, and somewhere underneath the sound of my voice, you can hear quieter sound of the room and your breath, the way you always breathe in and out. And you may notice that part of you is already doing what it needs to do, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Your conscious mind can listen to, or it can drift off and think about something entirely, a memory. It really doesn't matter, because your unconscious mind has been sorting your experience since long before you had words for any of it. It knows how to sort. It's been practicing your whole life. I want to tell you about the stomacin. I heard about one trained young by an old master on a job where the first wall they ever built together had leaned just slightly and had to come down. And the master taught the apprentice to check every stone against the straight edge before it went into the wall. every single one. Years passed. The apprentice became the master. Everyone else came to for hardest work. The codes, the load-bearing arches, the jobs nobody else would take, and still out of old habit, the mason checked every stone, not once, sometimes 7, 8, 9 times. Long after tools had improved, long after the walls had never once fallen, and you may already be noticing that checking a stone once and checking it 9 times tell you exactly the same thing about the stone. One afternoon, a younger apprentice, nervous, the way we all are the first few years, asked the mason to check a wall she built alone for the first time. The mason walked the length of it and ran the straight edge along the top, checked the corner, and found it first pass. No second check did, and for one long moment the mason just stood there, because there was nothing left to check, and the wall was simply quiet enough. The mason didn't decide to stop checking things carefully after that day. The work still mattered. The care still mattered. But something had shifted underneath. In the part of the mason that used to need 9 checks to feel finished, one true check was still, it always had be. And you may find in your own time, in your own way, that some part of you already knows the difference between checking, because it helps the work, and checking because something much older than the work, a wall from a long time ago, that had nothing to do with you. You don't need 11 checks to know something is true. One honest look is still an honest look. And somewhere in you, underneath the old habit, there's a place that already knows what enough actually feels like, because you felt it before, even if it's been a while. Sometime soon, maybe in a week, maybe next, there'll be a small, ordinary moment, sending something, saying something, showing up somewhere. And in that moment, you might notice your head just slightly unclench. And that unclenching can be the sign, the same sign every time, that some part of you has already checked and already known and doesn't need to check 9 more times to be sure. And in your own time, in your own way, you can bring yourself back into the room at whatever pace feels right, noticing the chair, the sounds around you, your own breathing, and opening your eyes when you're ready, feeling every bit as alert as you need to be. Good. And this was a beautiful story with all of these commands and techniques into one story. I don't know if you can feel the shift. There's a shift. You know how you feel, and I will see you in the next video.